This video is over section 7.3, division of polynomials and the remainder and factor theorems. This section is going to be split into two parts. Part one is over long division. And then I do want to make a note that long division always works. This is a very tedious way to divide polynomials. However, it does always work, whereas in part two, there's going to be a very fast way to divide polynomials, but there's going to be some stipulations on part two. All right, it says use long division to divide the following. We have 6x to the fourth plus 3x cubed minus 7x squared plus 6x minus 5 divided by 2x squared plus x minus 3. Long division works exactly how you would do it in like third, fourth grade. Okay, we're just using polynomials instead. So I'm going to make my division symbol. I'm going to rewrite the top polynomial, the numerator, 6x to the fourth plus 3x cubed minus 7x squared plus 6x minus 5. And we are dividing that by 2x squared plus x minus 3. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, and hopefully I have enough space, you have to write very, very tiny for this, is we are going to compare this first term, this leading term, with our divisor leading term. So we want to think, what could I multiply 2x squared by to get 6x to the fourth? And that would be 3x squared. Okay, and the reason why I'm putting it here is in the future, it just helps me line up the squares with the squareds. Okay, so we're still trying to get this term here, but it helps me stay organized if I line up squared with squared. All right, to get our next row for the division, I'm going to distribute 3x squared to all three parts of our divisor, and I'm going to get 6x to the fourth plus 3x cubed minus 9x squared. This method is so tedious, you have to be so careful. All right, I'm going to erase these arrows so we can stay organized. So just like in regular long division, we're going to subtract this whole thing. And what happens is these two cancel out, and these two actually cancel out, and we're left with negative 7x squared. Don't forget this, minus negative 9x squared, so that's really plus, and that gives us 2x squared. We're going to bring down what's left and do it again to 2x, or sorry, plus 6x minus 5. Okay, so we are still, oops, let me grab my eraser. All right, so we are still comparing 2x squared, but this time we are trying to get it to cancel out with 2x squared. So luckily it's the same. So what could we multiply 2x squared by to cancel out with 2x squared by? And that would just be plus 1. And again, it's not a big deal, but I am lining it up with just, it's a constant, so I'm lining it up with the constant. You could put it here and it wouldn't matter. It just helps me stay organized if I line up like all my terms or whatever. We don't have a zero term because here it was canceled out. Or not a zero term, an x term. All right, so then I'm going to distribute 1 times 2x squared, and I get 2x squared. 1 times x, and I get plus x. 1 times negative 3, and I get minus 3. I'm going to erase these arrows so I have can keep it tidy. And then I'm going to subtract all of this. And when I do that, these cancel. I'm left with 6x minus x, which is 5x. Negative 5. And look here, we have minus negative 3, so that'd be plus 3. So I've got 5x minus 2. Now, so we finished our, we used our constant there, so we really don't have anything else to do. So what that means is, let me erase these pinks. What that means is this is our remainder. Oops, sorry. So right here, this is our remainder, just like in third or fourth grade, you'd have a remainder. So the answer to our question up here that polynomial divided by 2x squared plus x minus 3 is 3x squared plus 1, but it's a remainder. So when we write our remainder, we're going to take what we got, so 5x minus 2, over what we divided by. So the remainder is 5x minus 2, and that was a remainder out of 2x squared plus x minus 3. So this would be our final answer. Great. All right, for this next one, we have 12x to the fourth minus 4x cubed plus 13x squared plus 2x plus 1. And that's divided by 3x squared minus x plus 4. Okay, so sorry, I'm going kind of slow, but we're going to rewrite that in our division symbol. Again, you have to write really tiny for these. So 12x to the fourth minus 4x cubed plus 13x squared plus 2x plus 1. And that's divided by 3x squared minus x plus 4. And I'm going to move all of that to the side, but there we go. All right, we are trying to get 3x squared to cancel out 4x to the, or 12x to the fourth, and we would multiply by 4x squared, and like we did above, I'm going to line that up with my x squared term, and I'm going to distribute 4x squared times 3x squared would be 12x to the fourth like we wanted. 4x squared times negative x would be negative 4x cubed. 4x squared times 4 would be plus 16x squared. So this one ends up being very similar to the first one. So I'm going to subtract. These cancel out, and I have negative 4x cubed minus negative 4x cubed, so those also cancel out because we have minus a negative. Okay, and then I have 13x squared minus 16x squared, and I'm left with negative 3x squared. Let me erase my arrows and my highlights so I can stay organized. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to bring down what's left so that this is going to be negative 3x squared plus 2x plus 1. And I'm going to be comparing 3x squared to negative 3x squared, so I need to multiply by negative 1. Again, not a big deal if you put it here, but it's just better to line up our constants because then we know when we're finished dividing. Okay, so when I distribute negative 1 times 3x squared, I get negative 3x squared. Negative 1 times negative x would be plus x. And then negative 1 times 4 would be minus 4. I'm going to erase a few things to stay organized. Awesome. So now I needed to subtract these two. Negative 3x squared minus negative 3x squared goes to 0 like we wanted. 2x minus x would be negative x. Sorry, positive x. 1 minus negative 4, so be careful, minus negative 4 is going to be plus 5. And because we already lined up, because we lined up with our constant here, we are finished dividing, so this would be our remainder. Oops. So when we go up to answer our question, that polynomial divided by 3x squared minus x plus 4 is 4x squared minus 1, plus our remainder, x plus 5, out of our divisor, 3x squared minus x plus 4. So this would be our best answer. All right, last one, we have x cubed plus 64 divided by x plus 4. Notice here we go from x cubed to the constant, so we're going to need to put placeholders in or zeros in. So what that is going to look like, let's put our division symbol here. We're going to have x cubed plus 0x squared plus 0x plus 64. So notice here we added 2 placeholders because we're missing them from our problem. And we're dividing all of that by x plus 4. That just helps us stay organized. It's not necessary, but you're going to get really confused if you don't do that. All right, so again, we're trying to get x to turn into x cubed, so we need to multiply that by x squared. And then I distribute and I get x cubed plus 4x squared. Okay, and then we're going to subtract. X cubed minus x cubed cancels out like we wanted it to. 0x squared minus 4x squared gives us negative 4x squared. And then we're going to bring down the rest. So I'm going to bring down my 0x plus 64. We're going to repeat the process, but this time we want x to be negative 4x squared. So we want those two to be the same. So in order to get that, I need to multiply by negative 4x this time. So negative 4x times x is negative 4x squared. Negative 4x times 4 would be minus 16x. I'm going to erase my highlights and my arrows. And now I'm comparing these two and I'm going to subtract them. And when I do that, negative 4x squared minus negative 4x squared is canceled like we wanted. And then I have 0 minus negative 16x, so I'm left with a positive 16x. And then I just drop the 64. And now we're doing the same thing for a third time, but we're comparing 16x to x. So in order to get that those two to be the same, I need to multiply by plus 16. And then I'm going to distribute 16 times x and I get 16x. And then I do 16 times 4 and I get plus 64. Let me erase so it stays neat. And then lastly, I'm going to subtract these two. And if you notice here, these both cancel out. So I'm left with 0. And all that means is that my remainder is 0. And so that means that this divides evenly. So x cubed plus 64 divided by x plus 4 divides evenly. And that would be x squared minus 4x plus 16. Okay, and that would be our answer. I did want to make a point here that we're going to talk about a lot in the next video, but because this divides evenly, we can write x plus 4 and x squared minus 4x plus 16 as factors. So x plus 4 times x squared minus 4x plus 16. If I were to multiply those two together, I would get the x cubed plus 64 back. So we can, it's kind of, division is a way of factoring as well. Okay. And then just for the sake of factoring, which is what we're going to be doing in a couple of videos, I did want to show you that this continues to factor into x times x minus 4 times minus 4. And then the best way to write it would be x plus 4 times x minus 4 squared. So we're just continuing to factor that. For the sake of this problem and the directions we were given, this right here would be our final answer.